Welcome, everyone. We are back with another episode of Tea with Sue. It's Friday. It's a glorious day. And I'm so delighted to be able to share the next few moments with you. So sit back and relax, and we'll dive in. So you may have noticed that in behind me, I've added some butterflies on display. A dear friend of mine had a whole box full of butterflies, and she knows that my Magnificence Mentor app has a lovely butterfly on it. So we thought it would be kind of fun to jazz up my space, my recording space, with some butterflies. Now, butterflies are all about transformation. They're all about change. They're all about freedom. And in order to get to the transformation and in order to get to the freedom part so they can fly and soar, there are steps and stages that they have to go through in order to get there, just as we do. So when we go through these stages from birth all the way through to the day we depart planet Earth, we go through lots of changes, physically, emotionally, mentally, situationally. We're constantly faced with change. Now, have you noticed the odd thing though? Even though the cells of our bodies change from second to second to second, and everything shifts continually, as human beings, we don't like change. In fact, I know lots of people who absolutely despise change. They have their little comfort zone and they want to stay in it. They don't want the world to go all wonky and upset their routine or what feels normal to them. Oh my goodness. And I'm no different. I confess, I wish I was better at changing, but I still struggle. I still have times when I just dig my heels in and I don't want to change because it upsets my view of the world. It upsets my routine. It upsets all kinds of things that I didn't want to have to shift. So it takes my attention and energy away from other things. So there's a very interesting cycle that happens or can happen, and unfortunately happens all too often in our lives. That is can be a very destructive cycle. Not can be, it is a very destructive cycle when it comes to change. So there's a difference when we're faced with change in going in either responding or reacting to change. Reaction is action without thought. We just automatically do something because everything kicks in immediately, so we don't even think about it. A response is more of a planned action. So we have time to kind of think about it and decide, okay, what are we going to do next? So here's what can happen. And let me explain the cycle first. So when there's a change, so if we look at a circle with change in the middle, so at any time change happens, as human beings, we tend to have an instantaneous resistance to that change. So for example, when I was a kid growing up and I got my favorite round-toed shoes at the shoe store, and I was happy with those shoes. They fit me nice, they look cute, and I just love my round-toed shoes. And then the styles changed, and all of a sudden there's pointy-toed shoes. And I'm going, what? And right away resistance set in. I'm not having pointy-toe shoes. I don't like pointy-toe shoes. I want my old shoes. I want my round-toed shoes. So I was feeling resentment right away. So I'm resenting this idea that how dare they change the shoe styles. Well, this is like fighting upstream, right? There's nothing I'm going to be able to do about that, especially when I'm 5. So and I don't even think I have a choice other than to resist this change with all my might. So I'm feeling resentful. I resist the change, and maybe my resistance takes the form of, wearing those round-toed shoes until they're absolutely falling apart and I have no other choice. In that cycle, what can happen is we go from resentment about the change into resistance, where we just dig in our heels and we're not about to budge. And we have that rigidity to our attitude, to our physical being, and so on. And sometimes people literally have to drag us kicking and screaming in order to go to the next thing. So then what happens? Well, if the cycle gets started, you can stop it at resentment if you're quick. But once you move into resistance, then the cycle tends to carry on. And where does it carry on? It carries on to revenge. We find some way, we're so resentful of this scenario, and we've resisted for all our might, and we plot revenge. I'm going to get even with the situation, the person, the whatever. And we see this played out in the playground, and when we're little, easy, right? We've been playing with a toy, and another child snatches the toy from us, and we're resentful right now. And it doesn't matter how much our parents beg us to share. Now, be nice and share and don't fight and so on. We resist that. I don't want to share. And so what might happen? Well, maybe we'll snatch a toy from another kid, or maybe we'll hit the child that snatched the toy from us. We'll do something to get our revenge. But of course, the trouble is when we allow ourselves to fall into that trap and we follow through to revenge, it starts another cycle. So then somebody else is in resentment, who then starts to resist, who then plots revenge. Well, that's how wars get started, right? And they can be just little tiny neighborhood wars, or they can be worldwide wars. Not really where we want to be. So, and here it is, was just change, where there was just a change. So I'll give you a very recent example. I was scrolling through my news feed, and we're having a civic election coming up here in October. And the city council, in its desire to be to honor the land that our city was built on, which is Indigenous land, and to honor the Indigenous heritage that we have, decided to change the names of the wards. So an ward is just a city districts of voters. So previously, or up to now, we have had wards 1 through 12. So the city's been divided into 12 different wards. And if you're in Ward 5, here's where you vote, and so on. And here's who your counselor is running for election, and this kind of thing. So we go ward by ward. Well, now they've decided to shift and provide Indigenous names for each one of these wards. And of course, they're going through quite a process to make people aware of that, and to change all of the signage and whatever they have to do in order to do that. Well, I'm reading this, and there's a part of me saying, that's a very good thing to do. But then there's a part of me saying, wait a minute. And I'm feeling kind of resentful about this change, because this is different. all of a sudden I have a name for my ward that, number one, I'm not sure I can pronounce. Number two, I'm pretty sure I'll have trouble spelling it. And so these things just start rattling around in my head, and I'm in conflict with myself because on one hand, I think, wow, this is a very good thing to do. And on the other hand, I'm thinking, but how practical is it? And how am I going to cope with this? And so I found myself wanting to resist this. But I know that no, this is not going to work for you. So I need to catch myself at resentment and say, okay, yeah, I acknowledge it. I'm feeling resentful about this change. And a lot of it relates to my own ego-driven desires to not be uncomfortable, to not put myself in a position where I make a mistake or I do something wrong or whatever. And so I'm just not sure how to deal with this. So it would be so easy to just find a way and maybe to I don't know how I would get my revenge on this one. But I've decided that I'm not going to resist it. When they get the information out and I find out what the name is and how to spell it, then I'm going to practice, and I probably can Google it to find out how to pronounce it as well, so that I can learn something new and get comfortable with the new way. So here's one of the ways that we can come out of or stop that negative destructive cycle that can run of resentment, resistance, and revenge. Instead of the reaction, we say, how can I don't know how to respond to this, but there's a positive way. I'm sure of it. I'm sure there's a solution. I'm sure there's some way of dealing with this differently. So instead of being mired down here in this particular cycle, we're going to look for ways to rise above and look for the response. How can I respond to this? What solutions are available to me? And the second that I move up, the second that I go to this perspective and say, well, I don't know what the answers are. I don't know how to do this differently now, but maybe somebody does. Somebody out there knows. And who can I talk to? Or how can I find out? Well, the second that I do that, then I move into a growth opportunity. I move into the growth cycle. The lower cycle we call the maintenance cycle. We're fighting so hard to maintain status quo, to stay just the way things are and to stay just the way we are. But of course, life doesn't work like that. Life is ever changing and ever cycling and ever growing. So for us to be a part of that, to collaborate rather than resist, becomes the more effective strategy. And let's face it, it's a way more life-enhancing strategy than mucking about down here, where we're just going to spiral down worse and worse and worse. So then it's to say, wait a minute, this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity to change things, to look at things differently, to adjust my perspective, to learn something new. I may not know how to do it in that moment, but the opportunity presents itself. And when I take advantage of that opportunity, then I grow. So it takes some conscious work and some conscious thought to move from the maintenance cycle up into the opportunity cycle, up into the growth cycle. What I noticed for me personally when I was introduced to this cycle many years ago, I'd catch myself quickly having moved from resentment to resistance and then plotting my revenge. And I'm going, oh, wait a minute. I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to go there. So, but somehow I need to complete the cycle. And then I'd be on alert. So then the next time, maybe I'd catch myself at resistance and I'd know, oh, don't be going any farther. Back up, back up, back up. And then I could reverse the pattern, I guess. And then okay, where's the opportunity in this? What is good about this? What could work better than the status quo here? And when I would do that, I just breathe this sigh of relief. More automatically now, I move up into looking for the opportunity. And I look for my response rather than my reaction to it. Do I still feel resistance? Yep, I do. If somebody out there knows how to eliminate resistance to change, I want to know about it, because I've been seeking that. I think that would be quite a blessing, actually. But so far, I'm not there. And maybe you're not either. But that's okay, because it's the recognition and it's the conscious understanding of how this process works and how to get out of the destructive cycle and then up into a more productive way of being and a more productive way of doing as a result. So what we're really wanting, instead of confrontation about issues or things that we're not happy about or that we don't like in the way that they're changing, we need conversations, not confrontations. We need to be able to pull ourselves up and say, what's the opportunity in this? Because everything can be a sweet sour. There can be aspects that we don't like, and there can be amazing aspects that we do like. Well, the pursuit of what's going to work is a far worthier path than trying to maintain things as they are, and the effort that takes to just hold on tight and hold on tight. It's like, on this rock I stand. Well, if you're clinging so hard to that rock, chances are somebody's going to come along and just sweep you right off it, or a tsunami of something will just, and you're done anyway. So we might as well learn how to, if not embrace change, at least begin to tiptoe towards, well, maybe that would be better. Maybe pointy-toe shoes would be okay instead of round-toed shoes. I don't know. I haven't tried them on yet. So so maybe I'll go to the store and try them on and see if I like them. I still may not like them, but at least I tried. At least I ventured out and attempted to make that change. And then maybe there'll be some square-toed shoes there in addition to the pointy ones, and I'd like those better than the round-toed shoes. Who knows? But unless I look at my options, unless I explore what else is out there and explore somebody else's perspective, somebody else's ideas, then I have no chance. I have no chance. I just stay stuck. And staying stuck isn't my idea of feeling my own magnificence and embracing the kind of world that I would consider to be heaven on earth. So it's interesting when I think of change in relation to the butterfly. So here we have a caterpillar on a branch who is absolutely just gorging on whatever food source is there to build its reserves inside and build its reserves inside and build its reserves. So it just munches and munches and munches and munches. And then at some point, when its reserves are filled up, then it moves into the larva stage, the cocooning stage, where it gets wrapped in this safe haven so that it can do its transformation, so that it can move from being a caterpillar to a butterfly. This takes time. And as this miraculous process unfolds, in order for the butterfly to emerge from the cocoon requires a huge amount of struggle, because it's transitioning from one type of being to another. So it struggles mightily in order to break out of that little safety, that little safe cocoon. And of course, once it begins to break free and then the cocoon falls away, there's this vulnerable butterfly with wings that aren't quite strong enough yet and aren't quite ready for flight. But another bit of time and a little bit of movement and flexing of the wings and the drying of the body and the wings, and pretty soon the butterfly takes flight. Well, this is such a miracle of nature. As we are, as humans, we start in that little fertilized egg that's just a speck on the end of a pin, maybe smaller than that, I'm not sure. And we're in this cocoon in the womb, and we're fed and we're fed and we're fed, and we grow and we grow and we fill the space and we fill the space, and our mothers go, oh no, bigger and bigger and bigger. And they do their best to cart us around and wish this tenant would just get out of there because it's getting too much. And eventually, in order to be born, we struggle and struggle and struggle down that birth canal, or however we're born. It's a struggle. And there we are in the big wide world for the very first time. It's an incredible transformation and a miracle of nature, not to be resisted, it's to be celebrated and blessed and revel in the joy of that. And of course, as humans, it takes us time to go from that newborn into an exploring, reasoning, thinking, delighting, laughing, crying person who is filled with all the resources that each of us needs in order to embrace and demonstrate our magnificence to the world, all the talents and gifts that we have. So we are used to change unconsciously. Change is happening all the time. It's just our mindset and our perspective that can get in the way. And of course, our comfort zone, which is, well, I think I've said this before, that a rut is simply a grave with the ends kicked out. So sometimes our comfort zone becomes this rut, and the deeper the rut, the harder it is to get up out of it. So what we want to look at in relation to change, think about where your resistance comes in. Think about your resentment about the new that's presented before you, and then decide, am I going to fall into the pit and run this destructive cycle in my life and get more stressed and spiral down, or am I going to figure out how to embrace the change, how to accept it a little and a little and a little and a little until pretty soon that's the new normal. That's the comfort zone. I feel more comfortable now with that. None of us were comfortable, except maybe medical personnel, were comfortable wearing masks until we were more comfortable. I never thought I could have that thing on more than 5 minutes. And then I realized, oh, I could actually wear it longer for 2 hours or 3 hours or a whole day. We got used to it. Did we like it? Well, no, but the alternative was worse. The alternative of getting very sick was worse. So we look at how we change and grow and learn to adapt. So it's all about our level of flexibility, and our level of adaptability. Flexibility tends to be the willingness to change. Adaptability is your ability to change. So we'll have varying degrees of both of those. So it depends on how often you're willing to flex to a new situation, how often you're willing to entertain the idea of something different. And the more often you expose yourself to that, the easier it's going to be willing to change. Oh yeah, okay, I can do that. We can change that. I'm flexible. And we say that out loud. And there's certain things that we're extremely flexible about. There's other things to say, no, that's not happening. I'm not willing to do that. And we put the brakes on, but it doesn't mean that we need to be destructive about it. It just says, no, this is where my boundaries are, and that's fine. Adaptability, again, the more that we change, the more that we move into change, then the more we're able to. So again, it's a muscle that we have, the flexibility muscles we want to exert, and the same thing with the adaptability muscles. The more new things that we can expose ourselves to and dive into, even if we don't like them and never do them again, the fact that we were willing and we gave it a shot, that's what helps us to move forward. And then if we don't like it, well, we can find other things that fit for us and give us some comfort or give us some joy or whatever. So that's the focus I wanted to share with you today, the whole idea of how we deal with change and the recognition that, as the Borg said in Star Trek, resistance is futile. Resistance is futile. We're faced with change no matter what. And how we decide to go about it, whether we embrace the change or whether we resist it and feel very resentful, is going to determine how much heaven on earth we experience or how much hell on earth we experience. Your choice. You have free will. You get to choose. You know you can shift when it's important to shift because you're that magnificent. So this week, think about change and how it impacts our lives and what we can do to find a level of comfort in shifting into the new, away from the old. Enjoy your weekend. We'll see you next week.